Hare Krishna, good morning. So today we will study the sixth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The last chapter we will study together. So before, in the first 5 chapters, Krishna explained Buddhi Yoga, or consciousness, but without fruitive desires. That we have also heard about Sankhya, about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, all processes to attain liberation. And they are not just processes of liberation, they are also stepping stones towards Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada comments, especially in his commentaries, about what's the use of all these recommendations in each of this yoga system for developing Krishna consciousness, which is the highest yoga, Bhakti Yoga, which will be discussed from chapter 7 till 12. That are 6 middle chapters we will discuss, and they are entirely focused on Bhakti Yoga. But at the end of the 5th chapter, you may remember in verse 27-28, Krishna gave already a preliminary description of Astanga Yoga, of Dhyana Yoga, the yoga of meditation. This yoga is meant to meditate finally on the super soul. But we will see that in these first verses, Lord Krishna will also explain that even in the process of Astanga Yoga, eightfold yoga system, it is this Karma Yoga is necessary in the beginning stages. So when one becomes accomplished in the practice of meditation, then we will hear one ceases all mental activities and one comes to the stage called Yoga Ruda. So that's the purpose of this Jnana Yoga, to come to that stage. So we will first discuss the first 4 slides. I will read the first verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Anasrita karma phalam karyam karma karotiya. Sanyasa yogischa nanirachnirna sakriya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said that one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated in the renounced order of life is a true mystic, and not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So, impersonalists, sannyasis, mystic yogis, they are liberated, and sometimes they stop all their prescribed duties. But such yogis are factually self-interested. They think only of their own spiritual advancement. Also, Prahlad Maharaj, in his prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, expresses that. He prays to Lord Nrsimhadev. He says, there are many, many yogis in the Himalayas. and they perform meditation, completely renounced. They are only interested in their own spiritual advancement, but not in the advancement of others. What myself concerns, Prahlad Maharaj said, I'm not afraid from the material energy, but I feel sorry, I feel great compassion for those who are after Maya Sukha and trying to enjoy this world of matter and become bewildered. I feel great compassion for them. So these yogis, these mystic yogis, these sannyasis, they are actually self-interested. That real sannyas and real yoga means working in Krishna consciousness, working in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna without self-interest. So in the next verse, Krishna explained that sannyas and yoga, they are not different. He explained a similar thing. He explained it also in the 5th chapter already. But there he compared the jnani, the impersonalist, renunciant, with the devotee, with work in devotional service, yoga yukta. But here he compares it with the yogi. That yam sanyasamiti paro yogam tam viti pandava naya sanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kashana. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu. That for one can never become a yogi unless one renounces the desire for sense gratification. So, what's the sannyasi and the yogi? In what sense are they the same? They both give up their desires for fruitive activities. They give the result of their activities up. That they don't want to enjoy the material world. But a Krishna consciousness, a Krishna conscious person is at the same time a sannyasi and a yogi, because he engages all his senses in the service of Krishna. That is real sannyas. So real sannyas means action. 6.3 Arurukshar yogam karma karanam uchate yoga dasyata shiva sama karanam uchate. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is always elevated in yoga, cessation of material activities is said to be the means. So, yoga, a yogi must work to achieve mental equilibrium, and by that develop the capacity for meditation. But a devotee easily attains that condition because he dedicates all his activities to the service of the Lord. So now we will start with verse 5. In Ashtanga Yoga, the mind is very important in all the yoga systems. With the mind, we can connect ourselves with Krishna. If we have Krishna in the mind, we are connected. Therefore, to develop the capacity for meditation, that we must control the mind. Yoga practice means controlling the mind so that we become detached from sense enjoyment. Sense enjoyment and meditation, it goes ill together. So, because this is easily done in the practice of Krishna consciousness. But for the Ashtanga yogi, it's not easy to control the mind. It is, we have, like in the Ashtanga yoga system, or the jhana schools. To enter these schools, you must be celibate, you must be renounced, that otherwise these schools, these ashrams will not accept you. But Bhakti Yoga is so strong that even when one is married, one can practice Krishna consciousness, the highest yogis. So the mind is a very important instrument in yoga. Without controlling the mind, Srila Prabhupada says, that yoga is just a farce. So, and now these two verses, 5 and 6, speak about the importance of controlling the mind. So the first 6-5, Udat atmanatnam atmanam avasadyat atmevya atmana bandhu atmeva repo atmanam. One must deliver himself with the mind and not degrade himself. That the mind is a friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So we have on the screen the translation of Baladev Vidyabhushan. One should deliver the mind, the soul by the mind, not degrade it. The mind is a friend of the soul and its enemy as well. Hare Krishna. So, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, Udat atma atmam atmanam avasadyat atmevi atmana bandhu atvega ripu atmanam. With the mind you can uplift yourself, you can degrade yourself, or the mind can be your friend or your enemy. And the next, what does it mean that to deliver the soul by the mind or to degrade it? That to degrade it, that's the next slide. Baladev Vidyabhushan says one should not submerge the Atma in samsara by the mind, attached to the sense objects. So if the mind is attached due to false ego to anything in this world, then that attachment is the cause of material work. Material work based on attachment to things in this world that produces new bodies in the future. Karmic reactions. To receive karmic reactions, you get new bodies according to your attachment to things in this world. So that is submerging the Atma in samsara, in birth and death. So we should stop that stop acting as the body. False ego means or the idea that I'm the body, I'm the senses, and this attachment to the sense objects makes one work for sense gratification. and that degrades one. One becomes entangled. So if you have a mind that always is absorbed in enjoying things in this world, then we become entangled. The mind is your friend when it connects you with Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport of 6.5 does the next slide, entangled. The pure soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with false ego, which desires to lord it over material nature. We think ourselves the doer, the controller. I will plan my own happiness, and I will do this, that, and that. I will first get a nice diploma, and then a good job. Then I marry. I will have a big house, and nice children, and so on. This is planning to become happy in this world. That planning to become happy keeps you in this world. These desires, this attachment on plans to achieve. Because Krishna has explained before, due to our karma, we get circumstances in this life, which are due to the circumstances in our past life. These circumstances in this life, they are due to our acting with false ego in our previous lives. And you get the habits and distress that you deserve according to your past actions. So this planning for happiness, it's a big illusion. That in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you can read the story of Mrigari the hunter. And Narada Muni was wandering through the forest, and he finds animals with arrows in their bodies, struggling, half dead. And then he met this hunter with a lot of hair on his body. And he asked the hunter that, are you killing these animals half? And the Megharite hunter said, yes, that's my family tradition. I learned it like this from my father, and I enjoy when they are when I kill them half dead and see suffering. And Narada Muni said, can you do me a favor? And Megharite the hunter said, yes. Well, ask me what you want. I can give you some nice deer skins. No, Narada Muni. I said, I don't want that. I just want to ask you, kill them completely, because you will suffer a lot in your next life. And then he gave Megharite the hunter a vision about how he would suffer in the future because of his karmic actions. And then Megharite the hunter said, can I do something about it? Please instruct me. And Narada Muni said, yes, but first you have to break your bow. But then Megharite the hunter objected. This bow is my livelihood. How am I going to maintain my family? In the purport there, Srila Prabhupada writes, Megharite the hunter says that thinks that it's by my effort that I maintain my family. But Srila Prabhupada writes, this is not so. It's Krishna who maintains all his family members, or who maintains everyone. So now the Muni said, don't worry about that. that that I will take care of your maintenance. And instructed Michael the hunter to plant before him the tulsi tree before his house and chant Hare Krishna and so on. And then the news spread that there is a great hunter who became a sadhu, the sadhu hunter. And from all these villages nearby, people came on pilgrimage to see the sadhu hunter. And if you visit someone, you bring someone. So they gave him all gifts. And he got so much food, more than he needed. Anyway, this is just to show that we think that I plan my happiness, and it's by my endeavor that I maintain others. And by that we plan for so-called success in life. But that is the entanglement due to false ego. If one wants happiness, Prahlad Maharaj says, then one should stop trying to become happy in this world. So the best way to disentangle us from this false ego is engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. So then we have the next slide, and that's a reflection. We have look at our own day in 24 hours. How much my mind is involved with false ego, to acting, following my attachment and attachment to sense gratification or to achieve things in this world, and how much time do we spend in serving Krishna without asking something in return? So that's important, because in the 8th chapter it will be very clear. Yam yam vapis vambran tayant antikalevram satatat bhavabav, yeah, tam tam avetikantya satatat bhavabhavita. Whatever attachment one has, at the time of death, that will create the next body. There are many persons who had near-death experience, and they say it was like all my entire life came before me as a film. So the time of death is very disturbing. That the mind will take shelter where it has been attached to during one's lifetime. Because at that time of death, all the organs shut down, and where does the mind take shelter? Where we have been attached to during our lives. So if we have not been attached to Krishna during most of our life, we will not be able to think of Krishna at the time of death if we have not created this attachment. So therefore, we must make the mind a friend. Bandhur atmatmanastasya yanatma chatmana chinchita anatmatstu sattvatve partatatma sattvavat. For one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. And when he has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So here, Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are Mahabahu, strong-armed. You conquer all your enemies. That is great. But greater than that is if you can conquer your own mind. So conquering one's own mind is very important. Prahlad Maharaj tells his father in Yakasipu, Materna Krishna Pratos Vativam Mitopi Bhatyeti Hyavanam Ananta Gopir Vishatamtam Mishram Punas Punas Sarvata Sarvananam. Ananda Gopir, because your senses are uncontrolled, your mind is uncontrolled. Vishatamtam Mishram, you are going straight to hell. That's important for all of us. Our happiness and quality of life. That depends how we deal with our mind. How we make our mind a friend and enemy. We have today this coronavirus situation. If we absorb our mind all the day in reading the news and all what is going on, that and all these miseries of the world, then we feed our mind with anxiety. We cannot sleep at night. So we must become conscious. Where do we absorb our mind in? That next slide. If it's an unconquered enemy, as long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. One becomes godas, a servant of the senses. It is a very insane situation. We are not this body, but then one becomes the servant of the body and the mind. We become the servant of the urges and dictations of the mind, of anger, and so on. Many times people speak about freedom. But what is freedom? You're starting follow the four relative principles so that you are not become the victim of your own mind and attachments. That is freedom, and then you will attain peace. So therefore, to attain that freedom, one must follow the dictation of Paramatma. Srila Prabhupada writes, real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then follow his dictations. So that's important. What is the dictation of Paramatma? Paramatma is an expansion of Krishna. It's an expansion of Krishna, and following Paramatma means following the instructions of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. We may still be too contaminated in our heart to feel the presence of the Super Soul, but we can follow the dictates of the Super Soul just by following all these instructions here in Bhagavad Gita. So controlling our mind. An uncontrolled mind is a worst enemy because it forces one to follow these dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion. The controlled mind means following freely, voluntary, the dictations of the Super Soul. Having the knowledge that everything belongs to Krishna and is for his service. And then with our intelligence, we direct the mind to be engaged in devotional service. When the mind is engaged in devotional service, then it has no time for engagement in sense gratification. We see, I remember that in the beginning, when I came to this movement, I got this book, Simana Siksha, from Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. And these are prayers of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami to the mind. Next slide. There you have Simana Siksha, verse 4. One devotee told me that when I got this book, because at that time she was not a devotee, and she read this book, Prayers to the Mind, Mana Siksha. That means we are not a mind. So she got the point that many people are identifying with the mind, very dangerous. So, because we have seen that in the previous chapter, chapter 5, that there should be equal in happiness and distress. That like a child, when a young child feels distress and he immediately starts to cry. When it's eating and playing, it's easily happy. There's no intelligence between to control the mind. It's a young child is really under the dictations of the mind. That intelligence develops when the child gets older and gets a little control over the mind. That's, if one can control the mind, then we are not a mind. Then the point is, what is controlling the mind? It's the intelligence. And how do we control the intelligence? How does the soul do that? With faith. And that is the process of developing faith in Krishna's instructions of Bhagavad Gita. And then engage our intelligence, mind, senses, and so on in the service of the Supreme Lord. We heard that already at the end of the 3rd chapter. So Raghunath Goswami prays, my dear mind, you must categorically relinquish all frivolous and mundane talk, which is like a prostitute who steals all your intelligence and resolve. So you see these frogs on the picture on this slide, and they are making a lot of noise, inviting a serpent to eat them. They are inviting death. So that's something we have to learn in the process of devotional service. Always to observe our mind and to correct our mind. Like we have Raghunath Goswami here. He came from a very wealthy family, but he renounced everything to join Lord Chaitanya's movement. And he became very renounced, and Lord Chaitanya was very pleased with that. So one day he was stopping taking prasad, and he decided to go to the temple of Jagannath Puri and just beg. He was begging that at the entrance of the temple, and he got some alms and some rice and so on. And by that he was surviving. But then after a few days he was thinking, because he was standing begging at the entrance of the temple of Jagannath Puri, and people came out, and his mind was saying, maybe he will give, or maybe the other person will give, oh, this person will give. So the mind becomes like a prostitute, Raghunath Goswami said. And he stopped doing that. He saw that was not a proper attitude of it within his mind, so he gave it up. And he was just living from some rejected rice that people throw somewhere, and one was washing it and and got the nice part from it and ate that. And Lord Chaitanya was very happy with his renunciation. That does not mean that we have to imitate Srila Raghunath Goswami, but it shows that it's important that we are observing our own mind. So, because next slide says, yeah, my dear mind, in this material life, we are attacked by lust, which is like a gang of thugs that waylay innocent pilgrims, strangling you with strong, terrible ropes in the form of distress, pain, and futile endeavors. So that's, he compares this lust in our mind as a gang of thugs which is strangling us, killing us. It's the activity of an Atmaha, the killer of the soul. That's very dangerous. Therefore, if we reflect on that, next slide, we can see these two options we have. I'm a servant of my own lust, anger, greed, or I'm a servant of Krishna, following the instructions of the spiritual master and Lord Krishna. And when we control the mind, then we will come in contact with the super soul once our mind is completely under control and purified. 6-7. Shitatmana prasantasya paramatma samaita situsnasika dukeshu tatamana pamanaya. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and its threat, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So it is said, because Krishna is in our heart, that either to feel the presence of Krishna in the heart of the super soul, one must be completely in the present. If you're in the present, you can absorb yourself. Then you can meditate. If the mind goes to the future, or the mind goes to the past, if the mind laments that's going to the past, or in the future it makes plans for this and that, you are not really present. You lose the present. But if you become peaceful, you become purified, you don't lament, you don't hunger anymore, then you can be in the present. And you can fix your mind on an object. And the yogi fixes himself within and concentrates himself on his real self and then the super soul. So that is the purpose of this yoga, to come in contact with the super soul. Because before we had heard the jnani, he wants to understand the difference between matter and spirit and concludes, I'm spirit. But then he wants to experience being a spirit soul. And therefore then follows Ashtanga yoga. And this will give a spiritual experience. So it is said, when one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, one has no alternative than to follow the dictation of the Supreme. If we understand we are a spirit soul, a part and parcel of Krishna, if we understand our superior nature, then we lose our interest for the lower nature, the temporary nature. No, we are going to follow the instructions of the big soul, Krishna, who maintains everything. Then there's no alternative. Like we have Haridas Thakur, he was fixed in this higher nature. And then this prostitute came. And he had no interest. That why should I engage in this lower nature? It's disgusting, because he felt this higher bliss. And then one follows naturally the dictation of the Supreme. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictations of Paramatma or Supersoul. Because that is factually controlling the mind. Controlling the mind is engaging it in Krishna's service. And that's what the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita are about. And they are no different from the teachings of Paramatma within. Next slide. Fixing one's mind on a superior nature. Srila Prabhupada in the purport, right? When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, one has no alternative than to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of Paramatma, the Super Soul. Is the same point here. But then, when one is fixed in that superior nature, then what is the vision of such a person? How is he situated in transcendence? How does he see everything? That's explained in verse 8. Next slide, 6-8. Jnana vijnati tatna kutasto vichitanvaya yuktait yochate yogi samalostasma kanshana. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, are the same. That these pebbles of stone, it's matter. It will not give any pleasure to the spirit soul, to my real self. That it gives pleasure to bodies. That if one is situated in one's real self and by that experience the bliss of that, one loses that in any interest in things in this material world. We will see that later in this. Further on, it will be explained the experience of one in samadhi, how blissful it is and peaceful. That Srila Prabhupada writes, a person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles or stone or gold, as the same. When you leave this body, what can you take and what do you take with you? Nothing of these things. It's all temporary. That it is only meant to give us temporary sense gratification. And the transcendentalist who has come in contact with the super soul feels always so blissful, no interest. And then the next verse, one explains, Krishna explains even a superior vision than just seeing pebbles and stone and gold as the same. 9, Soenmitra Udashina Mapyastat Vesha Bandhusu Sadhu Samsa Papasu Samabuddha Vasishyatu. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, the envious friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. So, this position of seeing equally meditators, envious, friends, enemies, pious sinners, is superior of seeing gold, dirt, and gold are the same, as the same. Why is that? Because why is someone a friend and an enemy? He's my friend because if he supports me to get a higher standard of sense gratification, that to give me material benefit. He's honoring me, is praising me, is encouraging me, that he's my friend because he gives me money or he gives me support. And that is my enemy. They want to take away everything from me and bring me down. So it's all to do with fear of losing a material position. This fear, due to this fear, we are developing material. Yeah, we are developing material qualities. That one goes to a solicitation interview, and one lies, because if one speaks the truth, then I may not get the job. Yes. Or this is my friend because it gives me material benefit. That because I'm afraid of losing things. This person tries to take away things from me. The tax bill comes. Yeah, we see that, yes, this is my enemy, tax bill. So that's, one sees spiritual vision has been described in the 5th chapter. Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahmana Karpastani Sunshev Shopakashay Panada Samadakshina. One sees everyone as a spirit soul. And one understands one is in a certain position in life and has become my so-called friend and enemy because of my past activities. It's nothing serious, it's all temporary. We are spirit souls, all equal in our suffering. So after giving this introduction, Lord Krishna now will speak in 17 verses about the practice of yoga. So in the first verses, Krishna has already spoken about yam, niyam to a certain extent. That one yam and niyam, that yam means following regulations. One must give up all activities that causes the development of lust, anger, greed, and so on. So one must follow the 4 regulative principles, which we all know, that these are things we have to do, which aspiring yogis also have to do. And then it says in the beginning, one must work without being attached to the results. Some karma yoga do, to purify oneself. Otherwise, one cannot sit down and meditate if one is too filled with passion. So these are things, niyam, things to do. But then one comes to the point of asham. And that's explained, in the beginning of these verses, 10 to 12. You have an overview of these verses until 27 of the practice of yoga, and there's a summary here that having described the stages of Ashtanga yoga, Krishna next explains the practice of those stages By practicing yoga with determination, controlling the mind, and fixing the mind on the super soul, one attains a stage of perfection called samadhi, wherein one enjoys unlimited bliss. So Krishna had already mentioned the stages of Ashtanga Yoga at the end of the 5th chapter in verses 26-27. But now he's going to discuss them in detail. 6:10. Yoga yogi yungita satatam atmanam rasistita ekaki yatasitasmani rasira aparikha. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So, this one must sit, one should be in a secluded place, carefully control his mind. That Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, do not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle one's feelings of possessiveness. So that's what entangles us in this world, thinking this is mine. You have I and thinking this is mine. That is an illusion. That entangles one in this material world, because you are attached to something in this world, and everything that what you are attached to changes. Everything changes in this world every moment. Relationships change. You have a house, it gets older, it needs maintenance. You have to maintain your car. That you get an accident, that something happens with the car, because of this feeling of possessiveness, you suffer. You identify practically with the car. And that's a big disturbance. Because of all this attachment, this is my wife, my children, my house. You try to meditate, and your mind goes always to this attachment, these feelings of possessiveness. So one must not, Srila Prabhupada writes, not hanker unnecessary after material things. Get what you need, but do not create excessive attachment to anything. You don't need the latest iPhone or whatever. That you can still do with your old one in a few years. That is just what you need. That's also important in devotional service. It's in the Bhagavatam in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. One should live a simple life only for self-preservation. But in this, Srila Prabhupada also refers to the word ekaki, alone. One must be, and that's also in the verse, that one should always in a secluded place, in that alone. That for what's the meaning of this ekaki for our practice? So a Krishna conscious person is always alone, having nothing to do with persons not in Krishna consciousness. That's the meaning for us. We develop Krishna consciousness. We don't want association with those who always speak about sense gratification and their bodily needs and this and that. No, we want to associate with devotees. So we can be with many devotees, like here on the screen, yeah. That so many devotees at the Russian festival. That's the same as being alone. We are engaged in hearing about Krishna. So there are 8 limbs of this yoga system. Yam, regulations, restraint. Niyam, observance, following rules. We have the same in our practice. We follow the four regulative principles. That's Yam. Our Niyam is we chant Hare Krishna 16 rounds. We hear about Krishna and so on. And then Asham, physical posture. That is also important for us. We have this chapa tape of Srila Prabhupada, and he's chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Sit properly, suddenly he says that. So that's important. If we sit properly, we can more concentrate on our chanting. Then pranayam, regulation of the breath. Pratyahara, sense withdrawal, going internal. And then one can start dharan, focus, concentration, and that becomes dhyan, meditation, and finally absorption. This is from the Yoga Sutra 2029. So the stages in yoga and samadhi. So having described the stages of Ashtanga Yoga, Krishna next explains the practice of those stages. By practice of yoga with determination, controlling the mind and fixing the mind on the super soul, one attains a stage of perfection called samadhi, wherein one enjoys unlimited transcendental pleasure. So a yogi must accept first favorable conditions for meditation, such as living alone in a secluded place, free from sense of possessiveness. And then a devotee does the same by practicing yukta vairagya, by using everything in the service of Krishna, because everything belongs to Krishna and is therefore for his service. He uses everything in the service of Krishna. Therefore, a devotee is a perfect yogi. So 11:12. I will read the translation. Sitya deshe patistapya stiramasnamatmana natuchitam nati nicham shailakya kusotaram tatakakam manakritva yata shitendriyakya upavisya saneyunya yogamatma visudaya. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing it on one point. So these are a lot of points here, but what's the purpose of all this? That is to purify the internal organ, Baladev Vidyabhushan says. Establishing its own solid asana in a clean place, not too high, not too low, he should prepare a sitting place by spreading kusha grass and placing a deer skin on and cloth over it, sitting on the asana, concentrating his mind on one point and controlling the activities of the mind and senses. He should engage in yoga for purification of the internal organ. Internal organ is the mind. That it's a mechanistic process to purify the mind. We purify the mind by activities in Krishna consciousness, that by having Krishna in your mind. So Ashtanga Yoga must follow several restrictions, not easy, such as going to a sacred place to perform his asanas, and that such restrictions, we can see, expose the fallacy of modern-day yoga societies who sell yoga without regulative principles. People follow so-called yoga to get rid of their fat or for health reasons, but they are not following these restrictions. So that's not an authoritative way of yoga. This kind of yoga will never bear any results. So all these restrictions, they are impossible to follow at the present moment. That means, so the best means for this age, Srila Prabhupada stresses, is the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So that this is a fact. Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, later he will tell Krishna that this yoga system is impractical for me. I cannot do it. Srila Prabhupada writes in a proper, he said that in a lecture also, that Arjuna is 1,000 times more qualified than all of us. If Arjuna could not do it, then how could we do it? There's a nice film which is on YouTube. If you can try to find it, it's called Samsara. It's an old film that they have and it's a 2-hour film, and it starts with some Buddhists in the Himalayas, and in that Buddhist temple, young boys, when they get 15, 16 years, they can do a test for voluntary. And they are brought to the Himalayas and put in a cave in the month of April, May. And they are sitting in that cave in yoga position. And they enter samadhi. And they close the cave. They close the cave for 18 months. 18 months. And then the year after, before the winter, they come. These monks, you see in the film, they are going up to the cave with some donkeys and there's a child, and then they come out the cave and they open the cave, they break it open it, and go inside, and you see this Buddhist yogi is sitting there in yogic posture, and his hair is grown very long, and he has long nails, and they do a test, and it seems he's still breathing, and they bring him out, put him on the donkey, half dead, his head is hanging down, and they bring him down and then to the river and shave him, wash him, and try to revive him with certain herbs. And they bring him to the monastery, and there, after many weeks, his digestion starts to function again. And he survives the test. And then they have a ceremony in which he's considered a good monk, and he gets a title. But then a few months later, they have a festival. And And this monk who did this test in this cave, he is playing a demon or a demigod, I don't know. And you see him, it's nicely filmed, you see him looking to the eyes of this mask of this demigod or demon. And you see him looking at the girl and he becomes attracted to that girl. And he falls down from his yogic position. It means it's all for nothing, that it's so difficult to achieve perfection in that way. In the part of verses 11, 12, there Srila Prabhupada writes, should Shaudi say in a second sanctified land, he is commenting on that. He said, sacred place refers to place of pilgrimage. In India, the yogis, the transcendentalists, or the devotees all leave home and reside in a sacred place such as Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, Rishikesh, and Hardwar, and in solitude practice yoga where the sacred rivers of the Yamuna and the Ganges flow. So that is still a tradition in India. Some reflections on that. The yoga engages in meditation for purification of the inner organ of consciousness, Atma Visuddhaye, this freedom from disturbance, which makes the internal organ very subtle. It's suitable for the direct realization of Brahman. That's Vishwanath Chakravarti. It's simple. This yoga is meant first, in the first stages, to purify the heart of all attachment of these worlds, so that one can give up these attachments and goes inside that Atyahara, or Pratyahara. So the point is, am I concerned with the cleanliness of my consciousness? What is my personal plan for purifying my consciousness from material entanglement? So that purification means giving up all fear. Therefore, they sit on this deer skin, because serpents do not approach deer skin. But otherwise, they are fearful from snakes who would come. And completely free from sex life. It's very difficult. So one must practice, Srila Prabhupada writes, controlling the mind and avoiding all kinds of sense gratification, of which sex life is the chief. I read verse 13, 14. Samankayo siro krivam daryam achalam stira samprekshana sikagram svam dishachana palokayam pasantatma vigata vir pamachari pratestita mana samyam yamachita yukta shita matpara. But one should hold one's body, neck and head erect and in a straight line, and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the goal of life. Srila Prabhupada writes that. So, the purpose of yoga is to discover and see the Paramatma within one's heart. And the ultimate goal of life is to serve Krishna. Therefore, any yoga practice without this purpose, Srila Prabhupada stresses, is a waste of time. In the jnana and dhyana processes, Celibacy is mandatory. I explained that before. But the practice of Bhakti, however, allows controlled householder life, because Bhakti Yoga is so powerful that one automatically loses sex attraction by gaining a higher taste. So we go back to the songs, to a song. Well, this is, I will present a song of Narottam Das Thakur. That, so I think most of you will know this bhajan of Narottam Thakur. Hare Kape Nitai Chande Karuna Hoibe Samsara Basana More Kabe Tuchahabe. When will that day come, when Lord Chaitanya's causeless mercy is bestowed upon me, so that my desire for material enjoyment becomes very insignificant? So Narottam Das Thakur is praying, when will the desire for material enjoyment become very significant? So text 15 stresses that yoga is meant to stop material existence. Text 15. Yunyameva satatmanam yogam yatamanasa santim nirvana paramam matsamstam adhikachati. This practicing yoga, constant control of the body, mind and activities. The mystic transcendentalist is mind-regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence. So that means that yoga is meant to stop material existence. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, a consummate yogi who is perfect in understanding the Lord himself, Matchita Matpara Matstanam. So these are, we find the Sanskrit words in different verses in Bhagavad Gita. So one who is perfect in understanding the Lord can attain peace and ultimately reach the supreme abode known as Kaloka Vrindavan. So in the next verses, Krishna will give very practical advice what to do, what's helpful in controlling the mind. And we will now have a break of about 20 minutes. So we will resume the lesson at 11:15. That in about 22 minutes from now, we will have a break, and then we will continue with a few verses, and we will leave 20 minutes for questions at the end. So we will now have a break and resume at 11:15. Thank you very much. So we continue that with the last part of the first section of the 6th chapter in verses 16, 17 and following. Lord Krishna gives practical advice on how to live in such a way that one can get control over the mind. So verse 16, there, Lord Krishna says, Natyas natasta yogasti nashekam tamanasnata nachapachvapasilasya chakato naiva charuna. There is no possibility of one becoming a yogi or Arjuna if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. So these are important instructions. If we don't follow this advice, then we will not be able to control the mind. That you see on the screen, verse 16, eating and sleeping, not too much or too less. You see the lady there with very little on her plate. That's certainly too less. And this man who is eating with a big belly down, that picture, yes, is certainly eating too much. If you eat too much, then you will sleep more than usual, like the baby on top of the picture of the man who is eating too much. So eating too much means sleeping too much. So how much should we eat? That it's different for everyone. When Queen Kunti was cooking, then half of what she would cook after the offering, she would give half of it to Bhima. And the other half she would divide in 6. The 4 other Pandavas, Draupadi and herself. So Bhima was Vrikodar, was known as a ferocious eater. So it's different because we have a different stomach. Ayurveda says you can eat, but you can digest in one time. What can we digest in one time? That's what our stomach can contain in one time. We have all a different stomach. We have also different hands. Ayurveda said what you can keep in your 2 hands, all the food you can keep in your 2 hands, that is what you can digest in one time. That's from that Ayurveda said, in the morning as breakfast you can eat from that volume 50 to 60%, at noon time 80 to 9%, and in the evening only 20%. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, and that's on the screen, and also Srila Prabhupada mentions that in lectures, one should fill the stomach half with food, 1/4 with water, and 1/4 for the movement of the air. But of course, what one can eat in one time is also dictated by the fire. The fire of digestion is in the stomach. If the fire of digestion is low, better not to eat much because it's not going to digest. And undigested food produces am, and this am turns into toxins. And these toxins will find their way in the body and will take shelter of the weakest part of the body and cause disease there. So overeating is many times a cause of different diseases. Yeah. So what is the result of extravagance in eating and sleeping? So Srila Prabhupada, he writes in the purport, and that's on the next slide, the man who is sleeping on the desk there. One who eats more than is required will dream very much while sleeping, and they must consequently sleep more than is required. One should not sleep more than 6 hours daily. One should not sleep more than 6 hours out of 24. So, one who sleeps more than 6 hours out of 24 is solely influenced by the mode of ignorance. Person in the mode of ignorance is lazy and prone to sleep a great deal. Such a person cannot perform yoga. So, to become a yogi means following these guidelines. Also, for us, very important. The devotee don't want to sleep, because then he loses time that he can use in the service of Krishna. Therefore, in the next verse, Krishna speaks about regulation. Yoga means balance, regulation, yukta vyarasya, yukta sistasya, kamasu, yukta svatna pabodasya, yoga bhavati dukkaha. He who is regulated in his habits, eating, sleeping, recreation, and work, can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When the first devotees from America went to Mayapur, then at that time in Mayapur, yes, it's not like today. Today you can buy bottles of water, purified water, but that was not there at that time. And most devotees got sick. But Bhanu Swami now, he was a brahmacharya at that time. He did not get sick, but he was eating very little and very disciplined. And Srila Prabhupada said, sees that that's a brahmacharya, he has controlled his eating, and therefore he does not get sick. Of course, even if one controls the eating process very nicely, does not mean you will not become sick, but it's certainly helpful to regulate that. Srila Prabhupada said, eating can be regulated when one is practiced to take and accept prasadam, sanctified food. So we eat prasadam, we say we honor prasad. We take it with respect. Not that we are going to conquer the food. No, we honor prasad means one takes prasad, and prasad becomes a meditation how Krishna tasted the food. It's a meditation on Krishna. And one takes just what one needs, certainly not more. And you have pictures of Srila Prabhupada sitting before with Janmastami of you see hundreds of plates of Mahaprasad before him. And he would take a little there, very, very little. So the Krishna conscious person is always alert in the discharge of his duties in Krishna consciousness. And therefore, any time spent sleeping is considered a great loss. Because, yes, a Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not connected with Krishna's interest. So you see on the slides of verse 17, at the right side, you have work, rest, recreation, work. That's the materialist. They work during the week. In the weekend, they rest, they have recreation, and then they work again. But a devotee does not need recreation. So Prabhupada writes, since there is no question of sense gratification, there is no material leisure for a person in Krishna consciousness. So a devotee is serving and rest. There is no recreation required because there is no question of sense gratification. That the devotional service, serving the Lord, it's so satisfying. that is better than recreation. Now, so this, now we will have a look, and that's the next slide, on the daily schedule of Bhakti Thakur. It's good to look how these great souls were living and practicing this. Bhakti Thakur in the evening, 7:30, 8 o'clock, he would take rest till 10 o'clock. So he would sleep 2.5 hours. Then he would rise, and with an oil lamp, he would start his writings. And he would work for 6 hours until 4 a.m. And then he would take rest for 30 minutes. And then he would wash his hands and face and did japa until 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, he would write letters, and then 7:30 read the scriptures for 1 hour, and then 8:30, or he would continue to read or receive guests. And 9:30 till 19:45, 50 minutes, he would take rest again. He would take his morning bath, and then a breakfast of half a quart milk, a couple chapatis and some fruits, very little. And yeah, it took 10 minutes, because 5 or 10, he would go to court in a carriage. He would be wearing a coat and pants, go to the court, but he had always his tulsi beads and his tilak. So, of course, he was a very strict judge. It was known that Bhakti Thakur was doing his job in half of the time of his colleagues. He would not waste time, only do really the essential, what's needed. And he would not allow any humbug in the court. No upstarts could stand before him. There are stories about that, but he would shave his head monthly, and he would never make any debts. That was his principle. Of course, that's unthinkable today in modern life practically, but he would never make any debts. And then the court started 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. The court was finished. He would come home, take a bath, refresh. At 2 o'clock, he would go again to the office until 5 o'clock. Then come home, and then he would translate works from Sanskrit to Bengali. And then he would take his evening bath and a meal of rice, a couple of chapatis, and a half quart of milk. So that's not much. Very simple lifestyle and very busy schedule. We know also Srila Prabhupada, he was also translating in the night. He would get up at midnight and start translating every day. So he followed a schedule that was very intense. All these young devotees who joined their movement in the 60s, 70s, although they were young, they could not keep up with Prabhupada's schedule. So that brings it up the point, what is my schedule? How can I improve it with that knowledge that we get here from Bhagavad Gita? So because regulation in habits of eating, sleeping, working, recreation, it's very essential in yoga. A Krishna conscious person eats only prasad and cannot bear to waste any time in oversleeping, because he enjoys serving Krishna. Now, text 18. Yada vineyatam chitam atmaneva fatishtate nispraya sarvakamebhyo yukti yuchyate tada. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, is said to be well established in yoga, that it disciplines its mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence. That Srila Prabhupada writes in a purport, a perfect yogi is so well disciplined in activities of the mind that he can no longer be disturbed by any kind of material desires. How to discipline the mind? Srila Prabhupada gives the example in the purport of Maharaj Ambarish, this famous verse from the Bhagavatam, from the 9th canto. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayo vacham subakunti gunan varmane karai mandir marchana disu shutim skarat desat katodaye Mukunda lingala darshane drisha tad pritya kata sparshan gam sanganam kanam satat pada sarucha sarabe shimatula tulasya rasanam tadakpati Padahaya Chitra Padanu Sarpane Shiro Rishikesha Pada Vivantane Kaman Sadasya Dasye Natukamakam Yaya Yato Tamasloka Shanasayarati. King Ambarish first of all engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Then one after another he engaged his words in describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, his hands in mopping the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the activities of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the transcendental form of the Lord, his body in touching the bodies of the devotees, his sense of smell in smelling the scents of the lotus flowers offered to the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaf offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, his legs in going to place of pilgrimage and the temple of the Lord, his head in offering obeisance to the Lord, and his desires in executing the mission of the Lord. All these transcendental activities are quite befitting a pure devotee. So that is the meaning of disciplining the mind. So the point is also here: do I direct my intelligence, or does the mind direct my intelligence, or do I direct the mind with intelligence? Do I act as I feel, or do I follow Krishna's instructions and engage myself in devotional service, as Maharaj Ambarish here is doing? If we are not directing the mind into that engagement, the mind is directing us. There is really nothing between that. So that is, there should be a little error disciplining that. So in that verse 18, there the word yukta, the Sanskrit word yukta, is used, well situated in the word for word translation. Srila Prabhupada, he comments on that word yukta in the commentary. He says the senses and the mind require engagement. Simply abnegation is not practical. Therefore, for people in general, for those who are not in the renounced order of life, transcendental engagement of the senses and the mind, as described above, is the perfect process for transcendental achievement, which is called yukta in the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, this process, as exemplified by Maharaj Ambarish, need to be followed. That the mind requires engagement. If the mind is not engaged in devotional service, it will be engaged in material activity. If a child is not engaged in doing something under the guidance of the parents, then it will do mischief, and the mind is like that. So always directing the mind, not let the mind overcome your intelligence. One has conquered the mind becomes as a lamp in a windless place, and that's explained in the next verse 19. Yatadipo nivatasto nenkate supamasmita yogino yatasitasya yungato yogamatmana. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation in the transcendental self. So Prabhupada writes, a Krishna-conscious person remains always absorbed in transcendence, in constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipful Lord is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. But for a devotee, this samadhi, this absorption, is active. That Hanuman was always active, but his mind was always fixed on executing the order of Lord Ram. And he could not be deviated from it, even for a moment. So that's called this Vyapasatmika Buddhi that we heard in 241 already. One-pointed intelligence, fixing on one thing, execution of the order of the spiritual master, or engaging one's body, mind, and senses under the dictation of the super soul. Always steady that. And don't let you be distracted. That I traveled for many years with Prahladananda Maharaj in the Balkan states, and we used to sit to have flights together. And when I observed when Maharaj was sitting in waiting for boarding in the waiting room, waiting for boarding the airplane, he would become absorbed in reading on his iPad or his laptop, and he would not look up for a moment, so fixed and absorbed in the reading. And that is what we must learn, to fix ourselves on our service. And don't let us be distracted by other things, temporary things in this world. This service, that is the spiritual activity here and in the spiritual world. But we must become absorbed in it. You see many times people, and that's the next slide, and you see this businessman there, or one is driving a car. One is driving a car and is hearing some music. Is making at the same time a phone call and is trying to eat something and driving at the same time. That's not going together, all these things. Life becomes very troublesome. Like someone may ask, yes, can I chant while I'm driving a car? I heard someone ask that a spiritual master, and the spiritual master replied, if you are driving a car and you are chanting japa, and you concentrate on the traffic rules and all of the driving, then the quality of your chanting will be low. You will chant with offenses, inattentive. And if you chant while driving and you become absorbed in the chanting, and you chant with attention, then you will be a danger on the road because you will not be able to give attention to all the traffic rules. So best not to do that. We do one thing, our service, and we concentrate on that. And then one can come into samadhi, even for the Buddhist active samadhi, but in the next verses, 20 to 23, the stage of samadhi is described. So this is, there are 4 verses. Yatra paramoteshitam nirudam yoga sevaya yatra shivatmanatmanam pashamatmane tushyati sukammatyantikam yatat buddhishayamatindrayam peti yatrana chevayam stita salati tatvata yam labda saparam labda manyate nadikam tata yasmin stitu nadukena konapi vichalyate. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samyutam. In the states of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by the practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized to transcendental senses. Established thus, whenever departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, it thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This is indeed actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So, in the states of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by the practice of yoga. So, in that state of samadhi, one experiences factually the communion of the soul and the super soul through the transcendental medium of the mind and intelligence. At this time, the Lord Chit Shakti that reveals the true nature of the living entity, and one can easily maintain detachment from sense objects because one feels this greater happiness. But unfortunately, many become, so-called yogis, become distracted from that goal because they become attracted to mystic powers. So if yogis are attracted by the byproducts of yoga, then they cannot attain the stage of perfection. Persons therefore indulge in the make-show of practice of gymnastic feats or siddhis should know that the aim of yoga is lost in that way. That happens many times. But also, Srila Prabhupada writes about the monist. Monist, those who think that there is no super soul, there is the Hare Krishna. Moment. So, just a moment. Something with the cable. Okay. So I hope you still hear me. So the monists, they think the super soul and the soul are one. There's only one soul. And they do not accept this communion with the soul and the super soul because for them there's only one soul. And they do not accept this transcendental pleasure Because if they accept this transcendence of pleasure, then there's a problem with the theory of oneness, of the communion with soul and super soul. That according to Patanjali Muni, Kaivalyam, that connection, is an internal potency by which a living entity becomes aware of its constitutional position of oneness. And what is that constitutional position of oneness? That constitutional position of oneness means that one realizes that one's position as a spiritual soul, as a spark of the big soul, which is Krishna, and that we realize we are qualitatively one. The soul is Satchidananda and Krishna is Satchidananda, but we are not one in quantity. We are very, very small, where Krishna is unlimited. Yeah. So, and we know that after attaining this nirvana, that realization that I'm a part and parcel of Krishna's spirit soul, then there comes the activity of the spirit soul. So beyond nirvana, there are spiritual activities, devotional service of the Lord. Of course, to attain this position of samadhi, yogis need a lot of determination. And that's explained in text 24. Sanisayena yuktavyo yogo nirvanashita sankalpa bhavan kamam styaktva sarvam asheshata anasharvanyagamam viniyamya samantata. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires, born of mental speculation, and thus control the senses on all sides by the mind. So yoga should be performed with enthusiasm, like the bird who attempted to dry up the ocean with stole their eggs, and Srila Prabhupada uses that analogy in his commentary, in his purport of verse 24. Although Baldev Vidyabhushan, he mentioned in the commentary on verses 20-23 that so we can see how Srila Prabhupada follows the previous acharyas. So this little bird lost one day her eggs to the ocean, and she said to the ocean, "You give my eggs back or I will start emptying you." Of course, the ocean was laughing. This little bird is going to empty me. The little bird started with a little beak to empty the ocean. Of course, it was an impossible task, but she had a determination. But then the Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard about this determination of his little sister bird, and he felt compassion. And of course, that the Garuda has big wings that's like half a planet. So he came to the ocean and told the ocean, "You bring the eggs back or I will start empty you." And then the ocean gave back the eggs. That in the same way, that determination is required in devotional service. Hope against hope, but we continue. It's a gradual process. Srila Prabhupada says, step by step, that so it's not that the yogi comes immediately situated in trance, it's step by step, very gradual. That so that's explained in the next verse also. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, one should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. So that's, we must direct our desire towards only pleasing Krishna, and use our desire to use our intelligence to fulfill that desire, to please the Supreme Lord, and direct the mind and senses in that way. So Vishwanath Chakravarti said the first action is to give up desires, and the last action is not to think of anything at all. So that's the yogi. He gives up material desires, and then his mind becomes peaceful. But the devotee does not give up desires. He gives up material desires, but cultivates spiritual desires to please Krishna. And by that, he attains transcendental joy. So in text 25, Lord Krishna explains pratyahara. So we have heard pratyahara, that we should shortly cease sense activities, give them up. The yogi gives them up, as described in 25, this pratyahara. Shortly, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. It's very, very difficult to do that. But that, Srila Prabhupada says, is pratyahara. That get rid of all material desires and think of nothing else than spiritual self. But that is very difficult. And Krishna will tell Arjuna how difficult it is in next verse. That says the mind is flickering and unsteady. That yato nishalati manashansamastram tatastatonyam yete atmaneva vasamnet. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under control of the self. So that's, of course, we see here on the screen, verse 26, a picture of a young boy with two cartels. It is said that this was Bhakti's Swarup Damodar Maharaj when he was a child, that he was always engaging his mind and senses already as a young boy in the service of Krishna. That Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, one who controls the mind is called a Goswami or Swami. And one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas, or the servant of the senses. So that pratyahara is not easy, withdrawing the mind from sense activities. That it's very difficult, and fixing on meditation on the self. That a devotee finds the same pleasure when Krishna is pleased with his service. So this verse 26 that says that wherever the mind wanders to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must slowly withdraw it and bring it back under the self. So the mind is called here Shanshalam, that flickering, that it's going from one jump from one thing to another. When you chant japa, then many times the mind starts to wander. You have to bring it back. But if you follow how the mind jumps from one thing to another, it's incredible. Flickering and unsteady. It's very difficult to control. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, the nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but the self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called the Goswami or Swami, and one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas or the servants of the senses. The Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesh or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. So serving the Supreme Lord with pure senses, spiritual senses, that's the highest perfection. And a devotee attains that, become purified by his service, and Shaldi comes to that point. So a servant of Krishna is a master of his mind and senses, whereas a Godas is a servant of the senses. So now, in a few verses, that Krishna is speaking about what is the realization, the realizations of such great yogi. What is the vision of such a yogi? So how does he see all living beings? That's explained in the last section, which will be the last section we will discuss today. After describing the yoga practice of fixing the mind on the self, Krishna explains the realization of the yogi. Prabhupada explains, a Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna situated in everyone's heart as a super soul. He sees Krishna everywhere and everything in Krishna. Thus he sees all living entities equally. So, verse 28, so we will read verse 27 and 28. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the modes of passion. He realizes qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest states of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada says, yes, this self-realization means one must know one's constitutional relationship with the Supreme. One must know who Krishna is, who we are. And then realize that our activity, our natural activity of our real self is to serve Krishna. So the spiritual is a part and parcel of the Supreme. and his position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. What is the vision of such a true yogi? Well, that is also the vision of the Uttam Adhikar devotee. So, on the next verse, 29, I read a verse that Sarvabhuta Samatmanam Sarvabhutani Satmane Ikshate Yogyuktatma Sarvata Samadakshinaha. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the Supreme Lord, everywhere. So, here it's mentioned how a devotee is a supreme yogi. That a Krishna-conscious yogi is perfect, is a perfect seer, because he sees that Krishna is situated in every heart, every living being as a super soul. He sees all the living entities are situated in the energy of the Lord, that either serving, they can do two things, serving the material senses, or they can service the Lord or serve the Lord directly. So the Krishna conscious person sees how the living entity is in either case servant of God. He serves to the material energy or to the spiritual energy, indirectly or directly. So Srila Prabhupada writes in a purport, the yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations, according to the results of fruitive work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. The vision of equality, this vision of equality is perfect in a person in Krishna consciousness. A Krishna conscious person sees everyone as a spirit soul, a servant of Krishna. And some don't know it and have forgotten it, and some are aware of it. Those who are aware of it are the devotees of Krishna. So then in verse 30, that there, and that verse describes how we can see Krishna eye to eye. Yamam pashati sarvatra sarvasamaye pashati tasyam na panashami sasame na panashati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Such a devotee is always connected with the Lord. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, a person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere and sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of material nature, but in each and every instant is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to material liberation. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee exists. In that stage, the living entity can never be annihilated, nor is the personality of God ever out of sight of the devotee. The merge in Krishna is spiritual annihilation. The devotee does not take that risk. And then Prabhupada quotes this verse from the Brahma Samhita. Premanjna Sriti Bhakti Vilochanena Sandasade Vrideshi Vilokayanti Yam Syama Sundara Sindhya Guna Svarupam Govindamat Purusham Tamam Bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord, Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee, whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen as the eternal form of Syama Sundar, situated in the heart of the devotee. So, this we see on the picture of the slide, Mother Yasoda looking in the mouth of Krishna. That so she sees in the mouth of Krishna how Krishna is situated everywhere in the material world. That is all pervading, is everywhere. So she had a practical experience. Baldev Vidyabhushan writes, he who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me never loses sight of me, nor do I lose sight of him. Prabhupada, so when the living entity becomes full in loving Krishna, then in that state the living entity can never be annihilated, nor is the personality of God ever out of sight of the devotee. One feels always that, and is always in connection with Krishna. And it doesn't matter for such an Uttamadhikar, whether in the material or the spiritual world, the vision is spiritual everywhere. Matter exists because of our consciousness of seeing things different from Krishna. But everything is energy from Krishna. For Krishna, everything is spiritual. How can something material come from something spiritual? But in our consciousness, we make a distinction. And therefore, we experience matter. Because we have this body made of matter, we experience matter. But once we are out of the body, no experience of matter. We go to the world so, verse 31, that's moment. That's 31. Sarva Bhutastambham Yomam Vajjanikatvam Ashtita Sarda Vartamanupi Sayogi Mai Vartate. Such yogi who engaged in the worshipful service of the Super Soul, knowing that I and the Super Soul are one, always remains in me in all circumstances. So we heard in the previous verse that a devotee who loves Krishna cannot bear a moment to live without seeing Krishna. At this stage, the Lord is never disappear from his sight, and he understands that nothing can exist without Krishna, and that Krishna is the Lord of everything. So, but when the yogi realizes then that the Super Soul on which he is meditating is Krishna, when he understands that the Super Soul who controls material nature is an expansion of Krishna, then naturally he will take to devotional service. That the devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness is in that sense not different from a perfect yogi, because who is meditating of the Super Soul. We are serving the Super Soul. So, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, there is no difference between a Krishna conscious person always engaged in the transcendental service to Krishna and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the Super Soul. The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities while in the material existence, he remains always situated in Krishna. And now the last verse we will discuss today, 32, that Atma Panyena Sarvata Samam Pashati Oriona Sukham Vayadiva Dukam Sayogi Paramam Mata. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress. So, a yogi, the devotee, he understands the distress of other living entities, living beings, with his own experience. He sees other living entities in this material world have material body, and they are suffering because of the material body. And I have also a material body. I'm also suffering. So he sees this equality. He understands by that the distress of others, and will not harm, trying not to harm any other living entity, even not an insect or an ant. That he knows they are suffering because they have forgotten their relationship with Krishna. Because the devotee is happy in Krishna consciousness, he wants to give them knowledge of Krishna. So that is better than a yogi who has gone to a secluded place just for his own self-realization, his own salvation. Baldev Vidyabhushan translates the verse as, "O Arjuna, I consider him to be the topmost yogi who sees everywhere the happiness and distress of others as his own." So then, last slide. The perfect yogi sees the true equality of all beings. The cause of distress of a living entity is the forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all activities of a human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. Srila Prabhupada paraphrased the last verse of the previous chapter. So that is the section we needed to cover today. And next time we will start with Arjuna rejecting the whole yoga practice. He says it's impractical and unendurable. That's where we will start next week, Sunday, the last session, when we will try to complete this chapter. So please let me know if there are any questions. I'm not sure that the chat section, the chat is working.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I think the chat is working. I don't see any questions.
Does someone hear me?
Maharaj, can you hear me?
I can hear Maharaj.
Anyway, if you hear me, then
I have a question.
If you have any questions, we can ask it at the beginning of the next session.
Okay.
And I will try now to stop the recording also and see if what's on the recording. Yeah, there seems certainly a serious problem with Zoom. But good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.